So yes, Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, joins us this morning to weigh in on the human rights record in the country. Good morning and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Well, it's always a very thorny matter, the world over, as a matter of fact. But if we localize it here in the country, how are we faring as a country? Are we knowledgeable to the extent that, look, it's one thing to know, and then enforceability of some of those laws. How are we faring at the moment?
Well, we have some of the best. Our human rights regime is one of the best in the world in terms of the formal entrenchment of human rights in the Constitution, in the African Charter on Human and People's Rights Act, in the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, Anti-Torture Act, and the rest of them. But in practice, we are doing very, very badly in practice. Illegal arrests and detention. People are subjected to torture, illegal parade of criminal suspects, media trial of those who are presumed innocent until proven guilty by the state, extrajudicial killings.
Isn't that the reflection of how lawyers are faring in pushing those matters?
I beg your pardon?
Isn't that a reflection of how well or otherwise lawyers are faring in pushing that?
No, before we come to the role of lawyers, we must talk of the duty of the government to protect the rights of citizens. And the situation is so bad now that some of those who are in charge of protecting our rights do not even understand what these rights are all about. Hence, you are sometimes told that in complying with a court order to release somebody who has been detained for 4 years or 4 months, you are being told, oh, we are doing it out of generosity. We are doing it out of compassion or mercy. So there is a problem here. Whereas under successive military juntas in the country, we even ensured that court orders for the release of political detainees or criminal suspects were complied with. And I was compared recently to reveal that even when President Buhari was a military dictator between 1984 January and August 1985. There were 13 court orders in the case of the detention of several people, there were 13 instances where the court ordered the release of political detainees and criminal suspects. I gave the names of the judges who made the orders. Those who were affected, they were all released on the advice of the Attorney General then, Mr. Chike Ofodile, SAN, of blessed men.
Mr. Falana, you listed some human rights infractions that we have been guilty of as a nation over the past some time now. In which way can we attribute this to education or lack of it, in terms of legal education or lack of it on the part of the people? Because if the people do not even know their human rights, how do they enforce it?
Before you can, I agree with you. We need a lot of enlightenment, a lot of education. We have pleaded with our governments.
Excuse me, sir. I like us. Chamberlain asked a question the other time about the role of lawyers.
Yes.
The lawyers are, well, there is no school of law for the populace. So it's the responsibility of legal practitioners to educate their clients, so to speak. So if the lawyers are there, shouldn't they be the ones educating their people, their clients? Look, these are your rights. These are your rights.
No. It is the law has imposed that duty on the government via the National Human Rights Commission to enlighten and educate Nigerians. But the National Human Rights Commission is the only body dissolved in 2015 whose council was dissolved, which has not been reconstituted. It's not funded well by the government. So it does not have the ability to go out there and carry out its statutory duty of enlightening the people. Again, each of the state government has a duty to educate their people. And we have pleaded with each of the state government, every state government in the country, to introduce human rights courses in our schools so that people can be enlightened with respect to their rights. But I must also confess,
sorry, before you
that the media,
before you move off the Human Rights Commission issue, what could be the reason for the holdback of the board of the Human Rights Commission?
I would not know. You are to help us by finding out from the government why have you refused to reconstitute the Human Rights Commission of all the other commissions and agencies?
Hitherto, how effective has the Human Rights Commission been in fulfilling that statutory role you mentioned?
No, the Human Rights Commission is currently managed by the Executive Secretary. And there's a limit to which he can go. Because there are some actions that will have to get the fiat of the council of that body. Again, I think this is where the Attorney General has to come in. Because the members of the board, the members of the council, are to be appointed by the president on the recommendation of the Attorney General of the Federation. So I think this is where you may help us find out what is going on. But with respect to the role of lawyers, Nigerian lawyers are, for me, very comfortable with impunity, abuse of the rule of law, and violations of human rights.
Why do you say so?
Again, because we have a history of struggle in this country. Under the previous military regimes in Nigeria, the Bar Association, Nigerian Bar Association, stood its ground. Our judiciary stood its ground in protecting and defending human rights. That is no longer the case. I'm talking of when human rights were put in abeyance by military dictators. Our judges insisted that the rule of law, thus permitted to exist, will have to be fully complied with. And so nobody, no regime, was allowed to treat court orders with contempt or disdain. The bar rose up. I do recall in 1987 when the late Alao Akaba Sharon was NBA president. How dare you? By coincidence, the current secretary of the government of the federal government, the current secretary, Mustafa Boss, was the chairman of the NBA in Yola, the old Gongola state. The Babangida junta disobeyed the court order. The late Alao Akaba Sharon, as NBA president, summoned the neck of the NBA and went on boycott of courts. Of course, the regime also rushed to court to get an order against us. And Akaba Sharon called all the lawyers. Since we are fighting for compliance with court order, we must also obey this order. And that was the Nigerian bar. Today, we are only interested in organizing annual seminars, dinners. At the end of the day, the bar is not doing much.
Why is that so?
Why that is so? Again, as I said, I think lawyers are just very comfortable, majority of lawyers with making their money, since we are now used to oppression of the people, we move on. It's only when the rich are arrested, where we can make money, that we shout from the rooftop, oh, there are human rights violations in Nigeria. Even the media. I mean, we only talk of people like Showore, Dasuki, Zakizaki.
The media reports what happens.
The majority of our people are languishing in custody on a daily basis. Even for a law that was abolished in 1989, law against wandering, people are still being arrested.
You know, I noticed.
Now, what we now therefore do for the bar, we have 125 branches of the NB, Nigerian Bar Association, spread across the 36 states. And I've pleaded with my colleagues, come, today, under the law, there shall be no illegal detention. Because a magistrate shall visit every police station at least once a month. So I now plead with my colleagues, get your human rights committees. Each of the 125 branches of the MBA has a human rights committee. Get the members to follow the magistrates to visit the police stations so that people are not detained illegally, so that those who are there illegally can be released on bail. We also ask the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, by virtue of Section 34 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, you are to appoint judges, designate judges, to visit the detention center of all other federal agencies like KFCC, ICPC, Armed Forces, and the rest of them. Since 2015, the judges have not been designated. So I've had to sue the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court.
Right, so we have touched on the role of the people in knowing their rights. We've talked about the role of lawyers in, ensuring that these things are talked about. You even talked about the media, but then, bless you. But looking at the law enforcement agencies, especially because Nigerians interact with them on a daily basis. You remember the End SARS campaign? Apparently, people still go through this on a daily basis. And I just want you to help us understand, seeing operatives of SARS or FSARS, whichever name it is called now, going around in buses, arresting young individuals. In what area is this covered under the ACJA? Or, why do they do this? What should young people do when these things happen to them?
Challenge the authority. But
Right
for those who are armed, don't challenge them
Because
so that you are not shot dead.
I saw a
but
video.
once you leave the scene where your right has been violated, you go to the authorities or go to some human rights lawyers to challenge the violations of your rights.
What happens at that point? I saw a video from a southeastern state where this young man was being beaten terribly by these, operatives. And of course, I'm sure that goes against a lot of areas in the ACJA. So at that moment, what do you do?
No, once you take the photograph, in fairness to the authorities, and this is put out there, usually there will be a follow-up. There will be a follow-up. But let me tell you the saddest aspect. Number one, there is no sanction for this level of impunity with respect to the violations of the rights of our people. No sanction. Sometimes the policeman you have dragged to court may have been promoted before the case is decided. So nobody has learned a lesson. Secondly, even when you go to court and damages are awarded, the money is never paid by the police or any of the agencies. One of your colleagues, Jones Abiri, was detained for 2 years by the former Director General of the State Security Service, Mr. Musa Daura. 2 years, no charge, nothing. We went to court. His family thought he had been kidnapped and killed. We went to court. The court ordered that he be released and that he be paid 10 million naira damages. Not only did the State Security Service not pay, they now turn around to charge him with terrorism.
But if the money is not paid, what does it cost?
We're pursuing that. No, the law says, whereas an attorney general has been, the government has been sued, defended by the attorney general. The government has lost the case. Damages have been awarded. You are now asked, as a judgment creditor, to get the permission of the attorney general before you can garnish the account of the government.
One more thing before you go. I need to break this up. Before Elsie Zaki was really went to abroad
India
for treatment, you had said he was going to go blind. He was in a very
not that he was going to go. He had already gone one eye. One of his eyes, he had lost one eye.
Okay, because
he now had developed glaucoma in the other one.
So when he then traveled, what went wrong? Because, there were those who had the impression that it was going to look worse than they saw him.
Yes.
But he then got there and said he wanted to come back. He was receiving better treatment in Nigeria than how he was being treated over there.
Yeah, the government frustrated the medical treatment. The order of court, we approached the court, allow this man to travel, just like you allow rich people to travel all over the place who have stolen billions. The government said, okay. The court said, you will allow him to travel. Go for treatment to be supervised by the respondent, that is the Kaduna State government. As soon as he left the country, the government took over. They imposed doctors on him, not his own doctors.
Is that why I said he was receiving better treatment in Nigeria?
Of course, because he was being treated by his own doctors here. The doctors followed him at the instance of the government. But to get in there, the government imposed doctors that he never knew. Say, no. I mean, I have my own doctors. You have denied them access to me. Let them discuss with your own doctor. Okay. And the government made that impossible.
All right.
That was what happened.
Well, Ayo, sorry you couldn't bring in those questions.
No,
That's
it
how far
really
we
is
can go this
fine.
morning,
Yeah.
but don't
It's-
worry.
you
There'll be
have-
another day.
It's official now that you have denied me my fundamental human rights.
We'll go to court on that.
Against channels.
Yeah, but don't forget, you will have to pay court fee. It's not pro bono.
And
No
you
lawyer
will have
will
to
take it pro
pay.
bono.
You will have to pay
Damages.
fine. Damages. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on, Mr.
Thank you
Falana.
very much.
I say, yeah. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Have a good one.